The 45th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. May I request everyone to rise for a minute of silent prayer. Thank you. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Hunasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
14 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we defer with the reading and approval of the journal of the 44th session, Monday, December 14, 2015, as it is still being finalized.
Any objection? Hearing none, the reading and approval of the journal of the previous session is hereby deferred.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 14 December 2015, it designated Representatives Ungab, Gonzales II, Andaya Jr., and Zamora as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Number 6268 and Senate Number 2671, both entitled an act modifying the compensation and position classification system of civilian government personnel and the base pay schedule of military and uniformed personnel in the government and for other purposes.
To the Committee on Rules.
Resolutions. PS Resolution Number 1678. Resolution congratulating and commending Nestor Colonia for bagging a bronze medal in the men's clean and jerk 56 kilogram division of the 2015 International Weightlifting Federation's World Weightlifting Championship in Houston, Texas, USA on November 20 to 28, 2015 by Senator Lapid.
Rules.
PS Resolution Number 1679 congratulating and commending Hidelin Diaz for bagging the 3 bronze medals in the 2015 International Weightlifting Federation's World Weightlifting Championship in Houston, Texas, USA on November 20 to 28, 2015 by Senator Lapid.
Rules.
PS Resolution Number 1680 directing the appropriate Senate committees to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the reported non-inclusion of questions on disability in the 2015 as required by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. Senator Lapid.
Economic Affairs, Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development.
PSR 1681 congratulating and commending Angelia Gabrena Paglikawan Ong for honoring the Philippines with the prestigious Miss Earth title on 5 December at the Marx Hall in Vienna, Austria by Senator Lapid.
Rules.
PSR 1682 directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation about the country's overall correctional and penitential policy, enforcement and discipline, security measures and other relevant aspects, the weaknesses, inadequacy and shortcomings of our correctional agencies and vital penal installations and facilities with a view to improve the same and rebuild the people's faith and confidence in government, in our institutions, and in the justice system. Senator Lapid.
Justice and Human Rights.
Committee reports. Committee report number 336 submitted jointly by the Committees on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation and Finance on Senate number 2178 introduced by Senator Paulo Benigno Bamakino IV entitled An Act Making Election Service Non-Compulsory for Public School Teachers, authorizing the appointment of other qualified citizens, providing for compensation and other benefits, amending for the purpose the Omnibus Election Code Republic Act number 6646 and other election laws, recommending approval with amendments taking into consideration Senate numbers 2443, 2516, and 2939. Sponsor Senator Pimentel III.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 337, submitted jointly by the Committees on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation and Ways and Means on Senate number 2140, introduced by Senator Pimentel III, entitled an Act amending Section 13 of Republic Act number 7166, otherwise known as an Act providing for synchronized national and local elections and for electoral reforms, authorizing appropriations therefore and for other purposes, recommending its approval with amendments, sponsor Senator Pimentel III.
Ordinary business.
Committee report number 338, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Women, Children, Family Relations and Gender Equality, Social Justice, Welfare and Development, Finance and Youth on Senate number 3034 with Senators Defensor Santiago, Soto III, Gingona III, Recto, Paolo Benigno Bamaquino IV, Marcos Jr., Legarda, Cynthia A. Villar, Ramon Bong Revilla Jr., and Cayetano P. as authors thereof, entitled an Act mandating the provision of emergency relief and protection for children before, during, and after disasters and other emergency situations, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 2446, 2448, 2466, 2487, 2502, 2718, and 2906, taking into consideration PS Resolution numbers 400 and 1025 and House number 5285, sponsor Senator Cayetano P.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 339, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Public Works, Local Government, Economic Affairs, Ways and Means, and Finance on Senate number 3035 with Senators Recto, Marcos Jr., Sani Angara, Joseph Victor Ejercito, and Legarda as authors thereof, entitled an Act authorizing public-private partnerships, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 459, 2665, and 2672, sponsors Senators Marcos Jr. and Recto.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Additional reference of business committee reports. Committee report number 340, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 1948, introduced by Representative Salim Bangon, entitled an Act establishing a research center for fish breeding and or hatchery for grouper, prawn, lobster, crab, and other high-value marine species in the municipality of Bantayan, province of Cebu, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendments, sponsor Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 341, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 4432, introduced by Representative Matugas, entitled an Act establishing research stations for fish breeding and or hatcheries for grouper, prawn, lobster, crab, and other high-value marine species in the municipalities of Dapa, Del Carmen, Socorro, and Pilar in the province of Surigao del Norte, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendments, sponsor Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Ordinary business.
Committee report number 342, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 4458, introduced by Representative Sarmiento C. et al., entitled an Act establishing mariculture development parks in the municipalities of Virac, Bato, Baras, Gigmoto, Viga, Panganiban, Bagamanok, San Andres, Caramoran, and Pandan, province of Catanduanes, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendments, sponsor Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 342, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 5645, introduced by Representative Garay, entitled an Act establishing multi-purpose fishery breeding farms and hatcheries for the production and multiplication of crabs, shrimps, and lobsters in the municipality of Linguig, province of Surigao del Sur, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendment, sponsor Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 344, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 5650, introduced by Representative Amante, entitled an Act establishing a multi-purpose fish breeding station and crab, prawn, shrimp, and lobster hatchery in Barangay Atahon, municipality of Nasipit, province of Agusan del Norte, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendments, sponsor Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 345, by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 5651, introduced by Representative Amante, entitled an Act establishing an aquatic research and experimental breeding station for lake, river, and other inland fishes in the municipality of Habonga, province of Agusan del Norte, appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 346 by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 5652, introduced by Representative Go A.F., entitled An Act Establishing a Prawn, Crab, and Inland Fish Nursery in the Municipality of Calamansig, Province of Sultan Kudarat, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 347 by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 6086, introduced by Representative Dimaporo A., entitled An Act Establishing a Research Station for Fish Breeding and Hatcheries for Grouper, Prawn, Lobster, Crab, Oyster, and other high-value marine species in the Municipality of Sultan Naga, Dimaporo, Province of Lanao del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 348, submitted jointly by the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance on House number 688, introduced by Representative Monteo, entitled An Act Establishing a Provincial Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Research, Training, Development, and Product Center in each of the provinces of Leyte, Southern Leyte, Biliran, Eastern Samar, Samar, and Northern Samar, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, let us acknowledge some of our guests today. We have the Coalition of Uniformed Service Retirees Organization. With us are Lieutenant General Adan, Chief Superintendent Van Luspo, Brigadier General Alquiza, and Brigadier General Ciscar.
Senator Soto is recognized. What is the pleasure of the gentleman from Cebu?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, we approved on third reading Senate Bill 2671. I voted in favor, and according to Section 91 of our rules, I may be allowed to file a motion for reconsideration because I have been informed by some of our colleagues that they have certain concerns on this Senate bill that we passed yesterday. So, with the consent of the body, I move to reconsider Senate Bill 2671 on third reading, Mr. President.
With the permission of the Chamber, before we act on the motion of the Minority Leader, acting of the Assistant Minority Leader, with the permission of the Chamber, we declare 1 minute recess. Luisito. Ayun, no? The session is resumed. There was a pending motion for reconsideration filed by the Assistant Minority Leader. We now have in the hall the principal sponsor of the measure, Senator Trillanes. May we find out from Senator Trillanes his position on the motion for reconsideration filed by Senator Soto.
Mr. President, the sponsor has no objection to the motion of Senator Soto.
Okay, there being no objection, the motion for reconsideration is carried. We now the Majority Leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, the proper procedure would now be for us to reconsider on the approval on second reading. Therefore, I move for the reconsideration of the approval on second reading of Senate Bill number 2671.
Any objection? What does this principal sponsor say? There's a motion that we reconsider on second reading.
I have no objection, Mr. President.
There being no objection, carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to reopen the period of individual amendment, and I move that we recognize Senator Ponce Enrile.
All right. On the period of individual amendments, Senator Enrile is recognized.
First of all, Mr. President, thank you for recognizing me. Second, I would like to thank the entire chamber for the liberality of their mind in addressing a problem that was brought to my attention, and which is the case of the retirees in the uniformed services. They have a problem with this law that was passed yesterday on third reading by this chamber. And with the attitude now of this Senate, I will bring it to them and tell them that this Senate ought to be commended. Thank you very much. And I would like to not to waste the time of this chamber, considering the pressure of time that we have. I would like to propose only 3 amendments, Mr. President. First, on page 4 of Senate Bill number 2671, line 13, section 4, coverage, after the word civilian and before the word government, on line 14, insert the 2 words and military.
What does the sponsor say?
The amendment is accepted, Mr. President.
Thank you.
The sponsor has accepted the Enrile amendment. Any objection? Hearing none, approved. Next amendment, Senator Enrile.
On page 5 of the same Senate bill, line 6 and 7, I propose that the words covered under open parenthesis, little a, small a, close parenthesis, military and uniformed personnel which shall be covered by the provision of section 11 hereof, semicolon, be deleted.
What does the sponsor say?
The proposed amendment is accepted, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
And on page 37 of the printed copy of Senate Bill number 2671, all the way to page 38, line 11 to 17 on page 37, lines 11 to 17 on page 37, and lines 1 and 2 on page 38, I move that it be deleted. And the wording that will be deleted from this bill is, notwithstanding the provision of Presidential Decree, open parenthesis, capital P period, capital D period, close parenthesis, number, NO period, 1638, and Republic Act number 8551, comma, and considering dependency of the passage of the pension reform law, establishing a sustainable and just pension system for military and uniformed personnel, comma, the indexation of pension benefits of retired military and uniformed personnel with the base pay for those in the active service shall be suspended insofar as the base pay increased authorized in this act, period. I move that this be deleted, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
The proposed amendment is hereby accepted, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none. Before we rule on that, Senator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm not objecting, but just a clarification, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
Just a clarification, I'm not objecting to the proposal by the minority leader, and I support such a proposal. But having said that, I just wanted to find out that based on these amendments, the cost of this measure, I would assume, would tremendously change. And what would that cost be, Mr. President? May we know from the sponsor, initially we were told that this SSL-4 would cost us in the next 4 years roughly 225 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
President?
Mr. President. It would cost roughly around 220 billion.
Yes. And I just wanted to put on record that it will be the taxpayers who will be shouldering this, Mr. President. And the 225 billion is assuming we were to implement it this year, the entire amount is 225. But having said that, if the first year of implementation is how much? 57 billion?
Yes, roughly around that figure, Mr.
57
President.
That's the figure in the General Appropriations Act,
Yeah.
57
That's correct.
billion.
And in the next year, how much is the additional incremental increase?
I believe it's the same amount, roughly.
Another 57.
Yes, Mr. President.
Having said that, Mr. President, the entire amount is actually not 225. It's 57 plus 57 in the following year. And then on the third year, what would be the incremental cost be? Another 50 to 60 plus billion. Then it would be the 57 plus the 57 plus the 60. So at the end of the fourth year, it's roughly 600. And this will
Billion, 600 billion.
billion pesos, and this will be taxpayers who will be paying all of this. Now, I agree that we must provide our uniformed personnel the proper pension, and I am one with the minority leader. But I think it is incumbent upon us to be fiscally responsible here in this chamber also, and if we are to legislate, to know exactly how much are we asking taxpayers to pay. Now, with this amendment, not that I'm against it, and like I said, that we may offer solutions. Let me give an example, Mr. President. For salary grades 29 to 33, there are only 4,735 positions. The cost here on the first year is 8.6 billion. Ito yung sweldo natin dito, in this chamber. Among others, from salary grade 29 to 30. The biggest increase in this entire proposal. I am willing to forego my share and provide it to the military, so to speak, and the uniformed personnel. So there are solutions, Mr. President. But I think it is first important for us to know, magkano ba are we talking about here? Because I would assume that when the executive made this proposal and submitted it to Congress, they were looking at an amount. And that amount is this 225. Okay? If we were to relax this section, magkano yung dagdag, Mr. President?
Okay, Mr. President, since this particular deliberation was unscheduled, the resource persons are not around. However, this sponsor would undertake to provide those data to the distinguished senator from Batangas at the soonest time.
Yeah. Mr. President, it is not only for me to know the information, the data, but I think it's important for all the members of this chamber. So I am requesting for this data for the institution and not only for this representation.
Yes,
Because
Mr.
at the appropriate time, then I could propose amendments. Halimbawa, on the, like I said, on the executive salary grades 29 to 33. That is roughly a 3 to 4-fold increase. And that's about 8.6 billion. Baka naman pwedeng bawasan natin do at ilagay natin sa pension ng uniformed personnel. If we knew the numbers, Mr. President. So I would, at the appropriate time, once the information is given, then we could propose additional amendments to the measure, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I make a comment, Mr. President?
Please proceed, Senator.
True that as a matter of magnitude, it will amount it will cost the government the amount of that Senator Recto stated. But I would like to point out that the recipients of this pension are not high tax-paying people. They're not rich. They're mostly poor people. They're soldiers, enlisted men. Maybe some have income tax to pay, but most of this will go to consumption, so the government will be recovering some of it by way of tax, actually. And with this money that will be released to them, there is a multiplier effect. So in effect, you are increasing the tax revenue of government by releasing this money to these recipients. So while given that looking at it as a recurring obligation of government, it will amount to that. But in the course of time, it will be recovered by the government, and the actual impact on the revenue of government will be much less than 600 billion pesos.
Yeah. Yes, as I mentioned, Mr. President, I am not against this. And I am in favor of providing our pensioners, our uniformed personnel, what they rightfully deserve. And my original position on this matter, Mr. President, is that if at all, we should not change the rules of the game. If at all, it should only be for new entrants to the military or the uniformed personnel. Dahil lugi naman yung, halimbawa yung magre-retire next year. Lugi naman yun. They knew already that this is the system, right? So I'm not against it. What I'm saying is this, Mr. President. All of us have to be fiscally responsible. At the end of the day, it is the taxpayers who are paying for this. And as I mentioned, roughly the next 4 years, we're talking about 650 billion here. And as I said, there are ways within the bill to carve out the amount of money necessary for our pensioners, for our uniformed personnel. We can tweak the bill in certain salary grades where we think we can reduce the increase. Because the increase is higher as the salary grade goes higher. If you reduce this and spend it to the lower salary grades, then the cost will not be the same amount, or for the pension of our uniformed personnel. So that's all I'm trying to put on the record, and that since this was not discussed during the previous deliberations,
I would like to point out,
I just wanted to put those on record, Mr. President.
that with this proposed amendment, it will remove the oddness that is going to happen, that the people who retired the day before yesterday, or before the bill will be signed into law, will not be affected because it will be their index up to that point, but all of a sudden they will not be indexed. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President.
The last amendment proposed by Senator Enrile, which is the deletion of the last paragraph of section 11. This is on page 37 of the printed bill, from line 11 up to page 38. Line 2 is deleted. There is no objection on the part of the sponsor. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, let me just manifest that along with this bill, this Salary Standardization Law 4, which concerns the military retirees, we are also pushing for the new pension reform bill that will address the problematic situation in the pension system that will only affect the new entrants into the service, Mr. President, which we will be sponsoring hopefully tomorrow, Mr. President. And by then, we also expect to have the data that was requested by Senator Recto. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Okay, the chair will now receive the motion to approve on second reading the measure.
Actually, Mr. President, this representation was of the impression that Senator Recto is awaiting data, and that we will suspend consideration pending the receipt of the information so he can make the appropriate amendments. That is my understanding from Senator Recto's manifestation earlier.
Senator Recto made it clear that he is not opposed to the amendment.
No.
The principal sponsor accepted the amendment.
Yes, yes.
And we placed on the floor the matter of whether or not anyone was objecting to the amendment of Senator Enrile?
None, Mr. President, because
None.
he's not objecting to any of the amendments presented. But he would like to propose additional amendments.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
You would like to propose
Additional amendments,
all
Mr.
right.
President.
Okay, the chair was mistaken, yes.
With the permission of the Senate President, I was just given a document. I don't know if this is accurate because this document did not come from the chairman of the committee, but it would appear to me here that the additional requirement for next year is 80 billion. For 2017, it's 90 billion. For 2018, it's 101 billion. Meaning to say, kung 225 yun, as originally discussed, it will become 300 billion. I'm not sure if this is accurate, Mr. President, because this did not come officially from the DBM. But there is such a document that was handed over to me. Now, we could probably find ways. I do not wish to delay the proceedings and the importance of this measure. I just wanted to put on record the importance of this measure, not only insofar as increasing salaries are concerned and to ensure that we protect the interests of our uniformed personnel, but likewise, someone has to speak for taxpayers and to be fiscally responsible in this chamber.
Point
Thank you,
well
Mr. President.
taken, and therefore, as corrected by the majority leader, we will not put the bill on approval on second reading, but will suspend consideration of the same to enable Senator Recto to take a second look at the measure and propose an amendment, if any, at a subsequent session. So with that, the
Mr.
chair is
President.
ready to receive the motion. Yes, Senator.
I would just like to manifest that while we're studying other further amendments, we should also consider the other beneficiaries of this salary standardization law, particularly those from the lower salary grades who are expecting this to be implemented January 1 of next year. Word has already gotten around, but of course, with all due respect to all the members of this body, everybody has the right to amend it. But I just hope that we can do it at the soonest possible time, Mr. President.
All right. Yes, we take that manifestation into account. In the meantime, unless there is any objection, we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2671.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, on November 4, 2015, the House Bill number 6198, entitled An Act Creating the Department of Information and Communications Technology, defining its powers and functions, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes, was referred to the Committee on Rules. I move that we consider House Bill number 6198.
House Bill again, 6. What's the bill number?
6198, Mr. President.
6198. Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Recto, who will be making a statement.
Senator Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, Senate Bill 2686 is about the creation of the Department of Information and Communications, or the DICT bill. Mr. President, Senate Bill 2686 was approved on third reading by this chamber on June 1, 2015, while the House of Representatives passed it on third reading, its own version, House Bill 6198, on October 9, 2015. The DICT will be the primary department in charge of developing, planning, and promoting the government's ICT agenda. The creation of this department will spur ICT development that will create jobs, generate income for the government coffers, better cope with the digital society, and bring hope in our country's future. I am pleased to report that House Bill number 6198 embraces essentially the same provisions of Senate Bill number 2686, including the language used, except that the House removed the provision of the Senate bill related to the use of the e-government fund. We respect the wisdom of the House of Representatives and interpose no objection to the deletion of said provisions. The 2016 General Appropriations Bill, which was recently passed by both houses of Congress, no longer includes the e-government fund. Hence, the provisions related to the said fund, including the Senate version, are no longer relevant. Inasmuch as Senate Bill 2686 and House Bill 6198 have no significant differences, I appeal to my colleagues, Mr. President, that we adopt House Bill 6198 as an amendment to Senate Bill 2686.
All right. Senator Recto has moved that the Chamber adopts House Bill 6198 as an amendment to Senate Bill 2686 and adopt the same as and adopt House Bill 6198 as the measure that will create the Department of Information and Communication Technology. Is there any objection? Hearing none, approved.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer House Bill number 5307 under Committee Report number 290 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
1 minute suspension before we act on the motion. Session is resumed. Senator Cayetano, the Majority Leader, is once more recognized.
Yes. Mr. President, I withdraw my earlier motion on House Bill number 5307.
Any objection? Hearing none, so withdrawn.
Thank you. Mr. President, earlier we were considering Senate Bill number 2671. I move to reopen consideration of Senate Bill number 2671.
The motion is to
To resume consideration.
To
consider Senate Bill number 2671.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, we are in the period of individual amendments due to the reservation of Senator Recto. I move that we recognize Senator Recto.
Senator Recto is recognized.
Mr. President, I've discussed the issue with this representation has discussed certain issues with the sponsor of the committee, chairman of the committee, and I withdraw my proposal to propose further amendments in the future, knowing that this will go to Bicam anyway, and probably at the appropriate time, the issues that have been raised can be settled in the Bicam for the consideration of this body, Mr. President.
Okay. Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. President. Given Senator Recto's manifestation, there are no other reservations for the period of individual amendment. I move that we close the period of individual amendment.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period for amendments is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2671.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2761 is hereby approved on second reading.
2671,
I'm sorry,
Mr. President.
2671 is hereby approved on second reading. Before we suspend consideration of the measure, under Section 92 of the rules, the secretary is hereby directed to send an advice to the House of Representatives with that we have reconsidered and that we are requesting for the return of Senate Bill 2671 and render ineffective any action thereon.
Noted, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2671.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, we have other guests to acknowledge. The senior citizens of Barangay Bakod Bayan from Cabanatuan City, headed by Corazon Cabantac. We welcome them to the
The
Senate.
presence is recognized for the record.
Thank you. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer House Bill number 5307 under Committee Report number 290 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
5307. Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider House Bill number 5307 under Committee Report number 290.
In order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure, House Bill 5307.
An act declaring the fourth week of September of every year as the National Thyroid Cancer Awareness Week.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Gingona to sponsor the measure.
Senator Gingona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Thyroid cancer is the seventh most common cancer in the Philippines, ranking fourth among females and 17th among males. By celebrating the fourth week of September as the National Thyroid Cancer Awareness Week, our countrymen will become more aware of this potentially curable cancer. This is a unique cancer because there is an actual potential cure if detected early and managed adequately. The month of September is celebrated internationally as Thyroid Cancer Awareness Month. Through public awareness and education, early screening and detection of thyroid cancer is anticipated. Much like breast palpation is now a common strategy done by women to check for breast masses in order to detect breast cancer. Neck palpation for lumps and bumps will become an important routine to detect thyroid masses. In this way, thyroid cancer can be detected earlier, leading to early surgery and treatment and potential cure. On the other hand, when detected late, thyroid cancer can spread to other parts of the body and can lead to poor quality of life and even death. Through the passage of this bill, measures can be undertaken by the Department of Health to develop national programs to discuss the causes and consequences, as well as the prevention and treatment of thyroid cancer. In view of the foregoing, I urge the support of my colleagues for the passage of this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, to give our colleagues time to study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 5307 under Committee Report number 290.
Approve.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 2767 under Committee Report number 291 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
In order.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 2767 under Committee Report number 291.
Approve.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary reads only the title of the measure.
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 2767, an act increasing the bed capacity of Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center located in Cebu City from 800 to 1,200 bed capacity and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Ginggona to sponsor the measure.
Senator Ginggona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center is the biggest government-run health facility in Region 7. It is an 800-bed capacity hospital which does not only serve patients from Metro Cebu and Region 7, but also patients from parts of Mindanao. Due to increasing cost of medical care in private hospitals and the failure of public health facilities to provide needed services, more and more patients flock to Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center. In the past 10 years, the medical center's occupancy rate increased from 100% to 122%. While the Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center, through the years, has strived to improve its health care services to respond to the changing needs of the community, its present capacity prevents the medical center from serving its increasing number of patients, which in effect defeats the very purpose of providing universal health care to as many patients as possible. Thus, there is a need to increase the bed capacity of Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center from 800 beds to 1,200 beds. This proposed upgrading goes hand in hand with the present thrust of the Department of Health to enhance health facilities to improve access to quality care and to scale up public health effort to attain health goals. In view of the foregoing, urgent passage of this measure is earnestly sought. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, to give our colleagues time to study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2767 under Committee Report number 291.
Suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. A minute suspension, please. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2653 under Committee Report number 146. This bill pertains to the proposed Comprehensive Tuberculosis Elimination Plan Act, Mr. President.
Approved. In order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that we are in the period of interpellations. I thus move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Ginggona.
Senator Ginggona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I understand that there are no reservations to interpolate. I therefore move that we close the period of interpolation.
Just for the record, what does this bill intend to achieve?
Mr. President, this bill intends to achieve a national comprehensive tuberculosis elimination plan. Mr. President, we have an increasing number of tuberculosis reports, and therefore it is high time that we take some measures so that the dreaded tuberculosis, which should have been eliminated long time ago, finally comes to an end, Mr. President.
Is there anything in this bill which could not be done administratively?
Mr. President, there is one part here which says that all private, which is Section 12 of the bill, Mr. President, all public and private health centers, hospitals, and facilities shall observe the National Protocol on TB Management and shall notify the Department of Health on all TB cases as prescribed under the Manual of Procedures of the National TB Program and the Philippine Action Plan on Tuberculosis Control. In other words, a lot of private institutions and private physicians do not report the cases to the Department of Health, and this one would make it mandatory for monitoring, Mr. President.
All right.
Furthermore, Mr. President, it also mandates the PhilHealth to include relapse patients and return after default patients, those that have not completed the 6-month required treatment. They are now mandated. PhilHealth is now mandated to expand its benefit package for these people because they do not have it right now.
Thank you, Senator Gingona.
Mr. President, if I may add into the record also, the problem with tuberculosis in the Philippines is that the compliance rates of the patients who have tuberculosis in taking their medications has been very low, which then leads to the development of a resistance to the tuberculosis drugs, and which therefore we find ourselves in a situation where we have so many patients who continue to get tuberculosis and many are now drug resistant. So it has come to the point where legislative measures, stronger measures should be taken to come up with, as the bill indicates, a comprehensive plan. Just to put that into the record, Mr. President.
Okay.
On that note, Mr. President, I move that we close the period of individual period of interpellations, Mr. President.
So terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Gingona, to introduce committee amendments, if any.
No committee amendments, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I therefore move to close the period of committee amendment.
Committee amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of individual amendment.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
I understand there are no reservations for individual amendments. I move that we close the period of individual amendments, Mr. President.
Period for individual amendments terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Senate Bill number 2653 under Committee Report number 146 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2653 is approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2653 under Committee Report number 146.
So suspended.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2890 and House Bill number 1039 on the Magna Carta for disabled persons. Copies of the report have been distributed to the senators. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider the aforesaid Conference Committee report.
Consideration of the Bicameral Conference Committee report is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Angara, to present the Bicameral Conference Committee report.
Senator Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Majority Leader. Mr. President, on behalf of the Senate panel, namely this representation, Senators Senate President Pro Tempore Recto, Senator Aquino, Senator P. Cayetano, and Senator Binay on the Bicameral Conference Committee meeting on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 1039 and Senate Bill 2890, expanding the benefits and privileges of persons with disabilities, or PWDs. I have the honor to report to this august chamber the bicameral report on the reconciled bill. Let the joint explanatory statement of this bicameral report, consisting of 5 pages, be read into the record of today's plenary. And hopefully, Mr. President, the passage of this law will indeed be heralded as a great achievement for our kababayans in the PWD community. The additional VAT exemption in the enumerated services and commodities will surely enable PWDs to avail of their basic needs such as food, medicine, and medical treatment. The provision classifying PWDs as qualified dependents of their benefactors or caretakers will also provide a form of tax relief for those who have taken the responsibility to look after the welfare of these PWDs. Mr. President, I urge our colleagues in the chamber to adopt the bicameral conference report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 1039 and Senate Bill 2890. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of the Senate Bill number 2890 and House Bill number 1039 on the Magna Carta for disabled persons.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill number 2518 and House Bill number 3675 on local water districts. Copies of the report have been distributed to the senators. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider the aforesaid Conference Committee report.
With consideration of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provision of House Bill 3675 and Senate Bill 2518 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Angara, to present the Bicameral Conference Committee report.
Senator Angara is recognized.
Thank you once more, Mr. President, Madam Majority Leader. Distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the Senate panel, namely this representation, and Senators Recto and Ejercito, on the Bicameral Conference Committee meeting on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 3675 and Senate Bill 2518, removing the conditions for the condonation of all unpaid income taxes due from local water districts, or LWDs, I have the honor to report to this august chamber the bicameral report on the reconciled bill. Let the joint explanatory statement of this bicameral report, consisting of 3 pages, be read into the record of today's plenary. And hopefully, again, Mr. President, this bill will enable local water districts to channel their limited resources to expand their service coverage and to improve the quality of the water they provide to their consumers. It is the hope that with this legislation in place, clean and potable water will be accessible to all our kababayans, even in the far-flung areas of the country. With that, Mr. President, I move for the adoption of Bicameral Conference report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 3675 and Senate Bill 2518.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2518 and House Bill number 3675 on local water districts.
Any objection? Hearing none. The joint explanation of the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on 3675, House Bill 3675 and SBN 2518 is hereby read into the record, and upon motion of the Majority Leader, the Bicameral Conference Committee report is hereby ratified.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Angara. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 3034 under Committee Report number 338 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Senate Bill 3034 is about transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 3034 under Committee Report number 338.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
An act mandating the provision of emergency relief and protection for children before, during, and after disasters and other emergency situations.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize this representation to sponsor the measure.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, our Constitution mandates the state to defend the rights of children to assistance, including proper care and nutrition, and special protection from all forms of neglect, abuse, cruelty, exploitation, and other conditions prejudicial to their development. The Philippines is also a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child, which recognizes that children should be brought up in the spirit of peace, dignity, tolerance, freedom, equality, and solidarity. In recent years, the Philippines has endured several natural disasters, the devastating effects of which are felt until now. In 2013, the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that hit Bohol destroyed at least 2.1 billion worth of infrastructure and took numerous lives, being the deadliest earthquake in the Philippines in more than 2 decades. Just 3 weeks later, Super Typhoon Yolanda ravaged eastern and central Visayas, claiming thousands of lives and displacing millions. Children are the most vulnerable in these situations. Many are orphaned or separated from their families. More suffer trauma from the horrors of disaster. Without adequate disaster response, these children do not have access to the most basics of needs, such as clean water, food, clothing, or medicine. Much less do they have access to services, information, and support to help them recover psychosocially and resume a normal life. Thus, today I rise to sponsor Senate Bill number 3034 under Committee Report number 338, or the Children's Emergency Relief and Protection Act, which seeks to declare the duty of the state to protect the fundamental rights of children before, during, and after the disasters and other emergency situations. Comprehensive Emergency Program for Children. The bill requires the Department of Social Welfare and Development, along with relevant government agencies and civil society organizations, to develop a comprehensive emergency program for children, taking into consideration humanitarian standards for their protection. This program shall be implemented immediately after the declaration of a national or local state of calamity or other emergency situation to protect children and pregnant and lactating women. The said program shall have the following components: establishment of evacuation centers, establishment of transitional shelters, assurance for immediate delivery of basic necessities and services, stronger measures to ensure the safety and security of affected children, delivery of health, medical, and nutritional services, plan of action for prompt resumption of educational services for children, establishment of child-friendly spaces, and the promotion of children's rights. The other features of this bill: Mr. President, in the creation of evacuation center, it is noted that most times schools are used as evacuation centers. This disrupts or delays the return of students to school. Thus, the program includes that the school should be used in a limited way, and that schools in the long term should not be used at all, and the use of schools premises should be as brief and limited as possible. And the affected LGUs must implement measures to prevent interference to the educational activities of children. Orphaned, unaccompanied, or separated children. Mr. President, the unfortunate reality is that in the wake of disasters, suddenly and prematurely, many children are orphaned, separated, or unaccompanied. To address the plight of these children, the DSWD is tasked to develop a minimum set of standards and guidelines for the family tracing and reunification system to ensure the early reunion of unaccompanied or separated children with their families or immediate relatives. Children whose families and relatives cannot be found or assessed to be incapable of providing proper care and protection shall be placed in a licensed residential care facility or with a foster family or a community-based center. System of restoring civil registry documents. Currently, there is no system in place for the restoration of civil registry documents following disasters or emergencies. As it stands, if something like Yolanda happens again, we run the risk of loss or destruction of important civil registry documents which contain vital information pertaining to the personal circumstances of a child. Under this bill, the Philippine Statistics Authority shall develop a system for the restoration and reconstruction of civil registry documents that have been destroyed during a disaster or calamity, in order to ensure that the vital personal information of affected children and their families are adequately protected and available at all times. Conclusion, Mr. President, the Philippines is no stranger to natural disasters and calamities, from typhoons to volcanic eruptions to earthquakes, some of which have left massive devastation in their wake. Through the years, we have taken measures to increase preparedness and enhance responsiveness to these situations. However, children remain to be one of the most vulnerable sectors during such disasters. We must take steps in order to protect them and ensure that their fundamental rights are upheld, and this proposed bill is a significant stride towards this goal. As such, I earnestly seek your support for the swift passage of this bill. I would also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the presence of the Save the Children, which is an NGO that has been very supportive in the drafting of this measure. They're in the gallery today. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to give our colleagues more time to study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3034 under Committee Report 338.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 3035 under Committee Report number 339 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 3035 is hereby transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 3035 under Committee Report number 339.
The consideration of Senate Bill 3035 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that the Secretary reads only the title of the measure.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
An act encouraging more public-private partnership PPP projects, creating the Public-Private Partnership Guarantee Fund, and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Marcos, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Marcos
Thank you,
is
Mr. President.
recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, as Chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Works, I have the honor to report to the Senate Committee Report number 339, containing Senate Bill number 3035, or the proposed Public-Private Partnership Act. This measure seeks to repeal Public Act number 6957 as amended by Republic Act number 7718, otherwise known as the Build, Operate, and Transfer Law. Infrastructure is one of the main drivers of economic growth. It is the vehicle towards stability and progress as a nation. Unfortunately, fiscal challenges faced in the previous years has caused the country to lag behind the rest of its neighbors in terms of infrastructure development. The Global Competitiveness Report for 2014 to 15 released by the World Economic Forum states that our infrastructure, and I quote, remains poor, ranking 91st, especially with respect to airport, ranking 108th, and seaport infrastructure, ranked 101. Findings show that there has been a continuous trend amongst developing countries, including the Philippines, with exceeding need for additional infrastructure facilities. But the government falls short of meeting this essential requirement. This gap, which is caused by insufficiency of public funds, has led the government to tap the private sector and rely on the public-private partnerships as an alternative modality of procurement. This is actually a recognition of the indispensable role of the private sector in nation building. For many infrastructure facilities, the benefits brought by private sector's participation in terms of technology, efficiency gains, operational maturity, and the whole life cycle approach of PPP would truly provide material improvements in infrastructure development. PPP as a strategic tool is utilized all over the world, from developed countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, to emerging and developing countries like India, Vietnam, and Indonesia. It can be used for a wide range of infrastructure projects such as tollways, dams, train systems, airports, seaports, and information technology systems. In 2011, the Philippines ranked 8th in terms of PPP readiness, based on the Infrascope study conducted by the Economic Intelligence Unit for the Asian Development Bank. It is the only ASEAN member to have ranked this high on this index, which means that the country offers the most ideal environment for PPPs. However, the EIU released another report in April of 2015, lauding the Philippines as the most improved country in Asia-Pacific for PPP readiness. According to the latest report, the Philippines recorded the most improved regulatory and institutional frameworks and is one of the leading countries for improved investment climate and financial facilities. Further, the study states that the Philippines has used its increased capacity and transactional experience in recent years to promote capacity building in emerging PPP markets within the region. The current list of PPP programs include 53 projects amounting to 1,137.89 billion, or US dollars to 25.29 billion. There are now 12 awarded projects, 13 projects under procurement, 2 projects for rollout, 6 projects for approval of relevant government bodies, 4 projects with ongoing conduct of feasibility studies, 7 projects for procurement of consultants to conduct pre-investment studies, 7 projects under conceptualization, development, and 2 other projects for implementation. A significant concern for PPP undertakings is that its long-term nature exposes the private sector's investment to political risk and uncertainty that the terms and agreements of a duly executed PPP contract will not be honored when a different administration steps in. This insecurity undermines investment appetite, understandably. There is now a strong clamor for the private sector, from the private sector, for the government to institute well-defined rules of law and stability in order to spur infrastructure investment. Our private sector partners want the PPP program to continue, but under a clear, transparent, consistent, and predictable policy, regulatory, and institutional framework. To enhance the legal environment conducive for private sector participation, the proposed PPP Act will push forward major reforms, create more sustainable arrangements in undertaking the PPP projects, and institutionalize key initiatives which were already proven effective and efficient by the government. As a brief background, it was in 1990 when Congress enacted the first BOT law in Asia through Republic Act 6957 and amended the same 4 years after through Republic Act 7718 by expanding the variants or modalities under the BOT concept. Through the years, the concept of BOT evolved into what we now know as PPP. Government has learned many lessons from past BOT projects and broadened and deepened its understanding in structuring PPP deals and managing PPP contracts. The bill seeks not only the incorporation of these lessons and the adoption of the best practices used in other countries around the world, but ultimately aims to accelerate infrastructure development in the country. The proposed PPP Act aims to A. Protect public interest by providing the affordable, accessible, and efficient public services. When identifying priority projects, the implementing agencies are required to observe effectiveness in meeting government objectives, accountability, transparency, protection of consumer rights, affordability, public access, safety, and security. And on the other hand, the assessment by the approving bodies will depend on the overall feasibility analysis of the project, with due regard to the reasonableness of user fees and efficiency in public services when awarding PPP contracts. The affordability, effectiveness, and accessibility of PPP projects shall be accorded with paramount importance. B. Provide full disclosure of PPP projects and contracts. To provide more transparency on PPP contracts entered into by implementing agencies, these documents will be posted and be made available to the public. Gone are the days when government contracts are concealed and kept away from the public scrutiny. C. Recognize the impact of local taxes to PPP projects of national significance. The uncertainty of the rates of local taxes, specifically real property taxes, makes a PPP project costly and less attractive to private sector. Incentives like real property tax exemption would significantly improve the successful bidding of PPP projects of national importance. D. Foster competitiveness and transparency in unsolicited proposals. The 60 working day challenge period under the existing BOT law undermines the competitiveness of the comparative bidding or challenge process. Potential challengers are discouraged to submit counter-proposals given the very short period to prepare a proper challenge bid. Thus, the proposal to submit a comparative proposal, Swiss challenge, for a period of not less than 3 months nor more than 6 months will give the challenger time to prepare a well-studied counter-proposal. An additional option is being proposed under the PPP Act, wherein the implementing agencies may choose to convert the unsolicited proposal into a solicited project and offer it as a basis for competitive bidding, subject to reimbursement of project development cost in an amount not to exceed 3% of the project cost. In this way, the government will realize the full benefits of competitive bidding. Institutionalize important initiatives and governance measures already in place, such as the Project Development and Monitoring Facility, or PDMF, PPP Governing Board, and PPP Center. This measure aims to provide a transparent, accountable, and workable PPP environment. The bridge of cooperation between the government and the private sector, therefore, becomes a sturdy channel to maximize the country's full economic potential that will benefit our countrymen. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I therefore request this august chamber to join me in approving Senate Bill number 3035 under Committee Report number 339. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Marcos.
Mr. President, Senator Recto wishes to be a co-sponsor of Senate Bill number 3035, and he requests that his sponsorship speech be inserted into the record.
All right. The Secretariat is directed to read into, to insert into the records the co-sponsorship speech of Senator Recto. Just a few points for the record, Senator Marcos, if you will yield to one or two questions.
Certainly, Mr. President.
Senate Bill under consideration, Senate Bill 3035, is being filed and presented in substitution of, among others, Senate Bill 459. Senate Bill 459 includes a guarantee fund. May we know if this guarantee fund is in the measure that the sponsor presented?
In the committee report and in the measure that we have presented, that guarantee fund has been removed.
The guarantee fund has been removed.
Yes, sir.
Well, with that, the chair no longer has any question. We note that Senator Recto, who was a former NEDA Director General, has endorsed this measure and has in fact sponsored it. Is there anyone who has reserved the right to interpolate on this?
I do not have any record of any reservations for interpolation, Mr. President.
As far as the committee knows, there has been no reservations to interpolate on the measure, Mr. President.
What does the majority leader propose then?
Mr. President, as a practice, we usually give our colleagues a couple of days to review the measure. Thus, I was going to move for the suspension of the consideration, and I will make my formal motion now. I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3035 under Committee Report number 339.
All right. Can we calendar this again for tomorrow, our last session day for December?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, we will be ready, Mr.
We hope that the sponsor will be available tomorrow.
That's right, Mr. President. Yes.
All right. There is a motion that we suspend consideration of the measure. Any objection? Hearing none, so suspended.
Mr. President, just to put this on record, on the appointment of Senate conferees for the Bicameral Conference Committee for the reconciled conflicting provisions on Senate Bill number 129, entitled An Act Amending Presidential Decree number 442 as amended, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines, by adding a new Article 302A, reducing the retirement age of racehorse jockeys from 60 to 55. Approved on third reading last 14 December 2015. From the majority, Senator Angara and Senator Lauren Legarda, and from the minority, Senator Nancy Binay. A minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
And
DNB ka, ha?
Same thing.
Mr. President, ready to resume?
Session is resumed. Sige.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders the following: House Bill number 703 under Committee Report number 187, House Bill number 4570 under Committee Report number 188, and House Bill number 4576 under Committee Report number 189.
Any objection? House Bill 703, 4570, 4576 are hereby transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on second reading under one omnibus sponsorship the House bills I have enumerated as reported out under their respective committee reports.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned bills is hereby, will be sponsored under one omnibus sponsorship speech.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the titles of the proposed bills without prejudice to inserting into the record the whole text thereof.
The Secretary is so directed.
House Bill number 703, an act dividing Barangay North Bay Boulevard South in the city of Navotas into three distinct and independent barangays to be known as Barangays North Bay Boulevard South 1, North Bay Boulevard South 2, and North Bay Boulevard South 3. House Bill number 4570, an act dividing Barangay Tansa in the city of Navotas into two distinct and independent barangays to be known as Barangay Tansa 1 and Tansa 2. House Bill number 4576, an act dividing Tangos in the city of Navotas into two distinct and independent barangays to be known as Barangay Tangos North and Barangay Tangos South.
Senator Marcos.
May I begin my
Please
sponsorship?
proceed.
Yes, Mr. President. We move that we give Senator Marcos the floor to deliver his sponsorship speech.
Thank you,
Sponsor
Mr.
the
President. Distinguished colleagues, today it is my honor as Chairman of the Committee on Local Government to sponsor committee reports numbers 187, 188, and 189 containing House Bills numbers 703, 4570, and 4576, which all seek to create new barangays in Navotas City, authored by Representative Toby M. Chanco of the Lone Legislative District of the City of Navotas. First is Committee Report number 187, containing House Bill number 703, which seeks to divide Barangay North Bay Boulevard South into three independent barangays, namely Barangay North Bay Boulevard South, Barangay North Bay Boulevard South 2, and Barangay North Bay Boulevard South 3. Second is House Bill number 4570 under Committee Report number 188, which proposes to divide Barangay Tanza into two separate barangays to be known as Barangay Tanza 1 and Barangay Tanza 2. And last, Committee Report number 189, containing House Bill number 4576, which seeks to divide Barangay Tangos into two distinct barangays to be known as Barangay Tangos North and Barangay Tangos South. The delivery of basic services to the growing population of the three mother barangays under these committee reports has become an urgent concern since the dense population in these areas have resulted to inadequate delivery of services to its inhabitants, not to mention the difficulty of maintaining peace and order within these barangays. Hence, there is an imperative need to divide the above-mentioned mother barangays into new and independent barangays in order to enhance public service and effectively address the needs of the constituents concerned. The first mother barangay to be divided is Barangay North Bay Boulevard South, which has a land area of 1,600,622.44 square meters or 1.60 square kilometers and within a population of 68,375 based on the 2010 census of population and housing conducted by the PSA with May 1, 2010 as a reference date. Under this proposal, three separate barangays will be created to be known as Barangays North Bay Boulevard South 1, 2, and 3, respectively, with the corresponding populations of 16,423, 21,444, and 30,508, respectively. The second mother barangay to be divided into two is Barangay Tanza, with 4,764,613.39 square meters, or 4.76 square kilometers of land area, and a population of 24,917. The new barangays will be identified as Barangay Tanza 1 and Barangay Tanza 2, with a population of 13,310 and 11,607 respectively, as certified again by the PSA. Lastly, 2 new barangays will be created out of Barangay Tangos, which has 364,501.74 square meters, or 0.36 square kilometers of land area, with a population of 32,941. These new barangays will be known as Barangay Tangos North and Barangay Tangos South, which has a population of 16,565 and 16,376 respectively. The set of data for each mother barangays and their respective new and independent barangays sufficiently comply with the mandate of Section 386, Paragraph A of the Local Government Code of 1991, which states, a barangay may be created out of contiguous territory which has a population of at least 2,000 inhabitants as certified by the PSA, except in cities and municipalities within Metro Manila and other metropolitan political subdivisions, or in highly urbanized cities where such territory shall have a certified population of at least 5,000 inhabitants, provided that the creation thereof shall not reduce the population of the original barangay or barangays to less than the minimum requirement prescribed herein. An efficient local government and quality public service is expected in a barangay with a manageable population, where resources are equitably distributed to its constituents. In view of the foregoing, I request that this august chamber approve committee reports numbers 187, 188, and 189. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Marcos.
Thank you, Mr. President. To give our colleagues more time to study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 703, 457, and 4576 under Committee Report 187, 188, and 189.
So suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders the following: House Bill number 1140 under Committee Report number 204, House Bill number 1247 under Committee Report number 205, House Bill number 4215 under Committee Report 206, House Bill number 4013 under Committee Report 207, House Bill number 4012 under Committee Report 208, House Bill number 5204 under Committee Report number 209.
Any objection? Hearing none. In order.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on second reading under one omnibus sponsorship the House bills that I have enumerated as reported out under the respective committee reports.
Any objection? Hearing none.
With the
consideration of the measure on second reading is in order, and an omnibus sponsorship speech is allowed for these measures.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the titles of the proposed bills, without prejudice to insert into the record the whole text thereof.
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 1140, an act naming the national road from Barangay Bangay to Barangay Poblacion, Municipality of Dingle, Province of Iloilo, as Board Member Rufino A. Palabrica Jr. National Road. House Bill number 1247, entitled an act naming the diversion road in Sorsogon City, Sorsogon at Salvador H. Escudero III Diversion Road. House Bill number 4215, an act naming the Camiguin Circumferential Road in the province of Camiguin into the Pedro Romualdo Circumferential Highway. House Bill number 4013, an act renaming the Acop Tublay, Kapangan, Kibungan, Bacon, Sinipsip, Bagyas Secondary National Road in the province of Benguet to Governor Bado Dangwa National Road. House Bill number 4012, an act renaming the Gurel Bocod Kabayan Nabatan Road in the province of Benguet to Congressman Andres Acop Cosalan Road. House Bill number 5204, an act naming as St. Paul Avenue the road beside St. Paul College of Ilocos Sur, SPCIS High School Department located in the municipality of Bantay, province of Ilocos Sur, and the SPCIS College Department located in Barangay Bayubay, municipality of San Vicente, province of Ilocos Sur.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Marcos to sponsor the bills.
Senator Marcos is recognized to deliver an omnibus sponsored speech on the measures under consideration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, today it is my honor as Chairman of the Committee on Public Works to sponsor the following committee reports on the naming and renaming of roads. Number 1, Committee Report Number 204, containing House Bill Number 1140, naming the national road from Barangay Abangay to Barangay Poblacion as Board Member Rufino A. Palabrica Jr. National Road in the municipality of Dingle, province of Iloilo, authored by Representatives Hernan G. Biron Jr. and Ronald Cosalan. 2, Committee Report Number 205, containing House Bill Number 1247, authored by Representatives Deogracias B. Ramos Jr., Christopher Esco, and Rodel N. Batucabe, which seek to name the diversion road in Sorsogon City as Salvador H. Escudero III Diversion Road. Number 3, Committee Report Number 206, containing House Bill Number 4215, which proposes to name the Camiguin Circumferential Road as Pedro P. Romualdo Circumferential Highway in the province of Camiguin. This bill is authored by Representatives Javier Jesus X.J. D. Romualdo and Ronald M. Cosalan. Number 4, Committee Report Number 209, containing House Bill Number 5204, authored by Representative Ronald Singson, naming the road beside the St. Paul College of Ilocos Sur, or SPCIS, High School Department located in the municipality of Bantay, Ilocos Sur, and the SPCIS College Department in Barangay Bayubay, Municipality of San Vicente, Ilocos Sur, as St. Paul Avenue. Number 5, Committee Report Number 207, containing House Bill Number 4013, authored by Representatives Ronald Cosalan, Eleanor Bulut Begtang, Nicasio M. Aliping, Teddy Browner Bagilat Jr., Maximo Dalog, and Manuel Agyao, which seek to rename the Akup Tublay, Kapangan, Kibungan, Bakun, Sinipsip, Bugyas Secondary National Road to Governor Bado Dangwa National Road in the province of Benguet. And 6, Committee Report Number 208, containing House Bill Number 4012, authored by Representatives Maximo Dalog, Eleanor Bulut Begtang, Nicasio Aliping Jr., Teddy Browner Bagilat Jr., Manuel Agyao, and Ronald Cosalan, renaming the Gurel Bocod Kabayan Abatan Road to Congressman Andres Akup Cosalan Road in the province of Benguet. Based on the guidelines issued by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or the NHCP, proposed names for roads must have historical and cultural significance and must contribute to the positive development of national pride through good examples exhibited by the name being used. It is noteworthy to state that in the case of naming or renaming of roads in honor of certain respected individuals, the NHCP has a 10-year rule policy where the Commission encourages the passage of 10 years from the date of death of the proposed honoree before such tribute can be given to allow a better scrutiny of the honoree's commendable contribution and historical value to the country or community. This 10-year rule, however, does not apply to highly exceptional reasons. During the committee hearing on these bills held on March 12, 2015, the NHCP, represented by Ms. Cielito Reyno, supervising history researcher, waived this 10-year rule and instead considered the valuable services rendered and the exemplary role played by the honorees named in the committee reports. Included in the waiver of this rule are the proposed Salvador H. Escudero III Diversion Road, Pedro P. Romualdo Circumferential Highway, and Congressman Andres Akup Cosalan Road, whose honorees died only on August 13, 2012, April 24, 2013, and September 23, 2013, respectively. In view of the foregoing, I earnestly request this august chamber to approve committee reports number 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, and 209. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Recto. Majority Leader. I'm sorry, Senator Marcos.
Mr. President, to give our colleagues more time to study the measures, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bills number 1140, 1247, 4215, 4013, 4012, and 5204 under committee report numbers 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, and 209.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Thank you. Mr. President, Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill a minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Thank you.
Okay, resume. Second.
Yes, Mr. President. With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 299 under Committee Report number 287. This bill pertains to the proposed Road Speed Limiter Act.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of Senate Bill 2999 under Committee Report 287 is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the sponsor delivered the sponsorship speech last November 10, 2015. I thus move that we open the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation on Senate Bill 2999 is in order. Is there any member of the chamber who has requested time to avail of the period of interpellation?
I have no record of any reservation, Mr. President. I therefore move that we close the period of interpellation.
Any objection? Hearing none. Period for interpellation on Senate Bill 2999 is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Any objection? I'm sorry. Period for committee amendments is in order. Are there committee amendments?
No committee amendments, Mr. President.
I therefore move to close the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
Mr. President, there are no records of individual amendments. And any record for reservation for the period of individual amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2999 under Committee Report number 287.
There's an objection. Hearing none. Senate Bill number 2999 under Committee Report 287 is hereby approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Motion to
Mr.
suspend.
President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2999 under Committee Report number 287.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 3023 under Committee Report number 321.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the sponsor delivered the sponsorship speech yesterday, December 14. I thus move that we open the period of interpellation.
Period for interpellation is in order.
Mr. President, there are no reservations to make no reservations for interpellations. I move that we close the period of interpellation.
Any objection? Hearing none. The period for interpellation on Senate Bill 3023 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Ejercito to introduce committee amendments, if any.
Are there committee amendments, Mr. Sponsor?
Mr. President, there are no committee amendments.
All right.
Mr. President, I thus move to close the period of committee amendments.
The period for committee amendments on Senate Bill 3023 and the Committee Report 321 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
Mr. President, there are no reservations for individual amendments. I move that we close the period for individual amendments.
Is there any member of the chamber who wishes to introduce individual amendment? The chair hears none. The period for individual amendments is terminated.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 3023 under Committee Report number 321.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill number 3023 is hereby approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3023 under Committee Report number 321.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we consider committee report, Senate Bill number 2982 under committee report number 283. This is the...
In order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the parliamentary status of this measure is we have closed the period of interpellation. I move that we open the period of committee amendments and recognize this representation as sponsor.
All right.
Mr.
The
President,
period for committee for interpellation
has been closed, Mr. President.
has been closed.
So the motion is to open the period of committee amendments.
The period for committee amendments on Senate Bill 2982 is in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. I therefore move that we close the period of committee amendment.
Period for committee amendments is terminated on Senate Bill 2982.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
Mr. President, this representation has individual amendments. I will begin. On page 1, line 1, delete the word expanded and replace it with 100 days.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Mr. President, on page 3, line 1, between the words the and SSS, insert the word Social Security System and enclose the acronym SSS with open-close parentheses.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On the same page, line 3, delete the word except and replace it with the following with the following exceptions, comma, subject to the guidelines to be issued by the Department of Labor and Employment, open and close bracket, DOLE. I
Any
submit.
objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Still on page 3, after line 20, insert a new section which shall read as follows. Section 5, maternity leave for female national athletes. In the event a national athlete becomes pregnant, she will be referred to the team physician or an accredited physician of the Philippine Sports Commission, open close parenthesis PSC, or an OB-GYN to determine her fitness to continue training. She will be allowed to fully participate in all team-related activities unless the physician advises that participation is not medically safe or should be limited. Upon medical advice, she shall go on maternity leave until cleared to return to training. She shall continue receiving her allowance and be entitled to the same benefits while on maternity leave prior to childbirth and up to 6 months after, unless she can resume training sooner as advised by her physician, in which case she will be entitled to the allowances and benefits she had prior to pregnancy. The succeeding section shall be renumbered accordingly. I submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On page 4, line 2, delete the word Social Security System and the open-close parenthesis of the acronym SSS.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On the same page, line 10 to 13, delete the entire section 8, implementing rules and regulation, and replace it with this new provision. Section 9, implementing rules and regulations. The Civil Service Commission, open parenthesis CSC, close parenthesis, comma, DOLE, comma, together with the GSIS and the SSS shall issue the necessary rules and regulations for the grant of this expanded maternity leave for all female employees within 6 months from the effectivity of this act. the Philippine Sports Commission shall issue implementing guidelines for female national athletes within 6 months from the effectivity of this act. The succeeding section shall be renumbered accordingly, Mr. President.
Any
Yes, sir.
objection? Hearing none.
Thank you. A minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no other individual amendments.
Can we resume session?
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Resume. Mr. President, there are no other individual amendments. I therefore move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Period for amendments on Senate on the on
Senate Bill number 2982.
On Senate Bill 2982 is hereby terminated.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2982 under Committee Report number 283.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill 2982 under Committee Report 283 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2982.
So suspended.
Thank you. Anything else? Nothing, right? Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, December 16, 2015.
Session is adjourned until Wednesday, December 16 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.